It is December of the year 1944, and we are on the edges of the Belgian villages, where the conflict has broken out, and the story we are about to tell you is based on real events. The first thing we can see is a group of black soldiers driving a truck through roads that are destroyed, and Evans, who is at the wheel, is doing his best to stay on the path. But with the fog, the rough terrain, and the fallen logs across the middle of the road, it is quite hard for a kid from Detroit to drive the truck properly, and it does not take long for him to crash into a trap, or that is what it seems. After turning off the truck, the sergeant gets out to check, and a few seconds later, they can hear how something very big is approaching. But they cannot see anything because the bullets arrive first, and a unit of German soldiers has managed to ambush them. That was hard, right? In an instant, the whole truck is torn apart by bullets, and 3 soldiers appear to finish the job, killing all the soldiers that remain and shooting the only one who tried to flee. At that moment, the scene changes and shows us a soldier named John Castle, who has come to visit Mrs. Caldwell about her pension program, but she asks him to talk about all those matters with her lawyer, since he advised her not to talk to anyone from the army for the time being. Even though what Mrs. Caldwell wants is to ask him to leave, she owes him some hospitality for being a soldier, since her son was also in the war, and it is the least she can do for them. So she offers him a coffee, and John gets comfortable to tell her a story, taking us back to the past, to the moment when he was in his tent with his comrades, drinking some coffee with whiskey. John calls his comrade Cash to tell him that he will send him back to the hospital with the colonel, and because of his wound, they will surely send him home, so those are good news. But Cash does not want to leave and tries to convince him that he is still useful. At that moment, John raises his hand to show him and tells him that he lost 3 fingers. He cannot even hold his weapon, so he will go with the colonel and return home to sleep with his wife and have many children. When the colonel finally appears, he asks them to take out the maps. But before that, John orders his comrade to turn off Lassie, the name they have given to the radio, since they need to listen to these orders very carefully. Colonel Neal informs him that they have very good information about the SS company, which is approaching through a road to the north, so he will send them to that place to set up an ambush and finish off the men who used to protect the Führer, the worst of all. But he warns them that those guys are not just soldiers, they are killers, so they can expect anything from them. And he asks them to have no compassion at all. Everything that enters that road dies. That is the order. In this case, the rule of taking prisoners does not apply. Any man who drops his weapons and surrenders must be shot immediately, because they would do the same in that situation. At that moment, John promises him that they will do everything he has said. They will finish off these men, but they need some time, since just getting to that point on the road will take them at least 2 hours, and 2 more hours to set up all the equipment. So in 4 hours, they will be ready to deliver justice for all the soldiers who have been killed by the SS. As soon as the colonel leaves and takes Cash with him, John asks Morph, his trusted man, to gather all the TNT he can. They will prepare a big surprise for those guys, but they must hurry, since sometimes the information is not usually that accurate when it comes to time. While the boys prepare everything, John smokes a cigarette and makes sure that the first drag is big enough to burn the Lucky Strike logo, since only Americans smoke that brand, and he would not want to give himself away. On board the truck, the unit gets moving. The first ones to leave are John, along with the explosives he needs to place on the road. That is, if Morph does not kill them before they arrive, since he drives terribly. As they drive, Morph asks his captain a personal question, because it turns out that he was an agricultural engineer, and he was eligible to receive an exemption, so he would not have to be here risking his life, but at home producing food for all the families that stayed behind. But John decided to come and do his part for his country, even though his wife was not very happy about that. After driving for a good while, the truck stops suddenly, and Morph reveals to his captain that the injection pump has failed, since they could not bring the spare part, and it will take at least an hour to fix it. That is time they do not have, since they are carrying 200 kilograms of explosives in the back, and they need to prepare the road for the ambush, or they will lose one of the biggest chances they have received to hurt the German army. So John has to improvise and tells the unit that they will advance on foot from here. So everyone must take a box of explosives and start moving. Luckily for them, only a couple of kilometers were left, and they still have time. The bad thing is that in the distance they can hear the German artillery, and at any moment it could fall on them, so they are working under a lot of pressure. The unit gets to work right away and manages to place a couple of charges, but when Morph is about to install the detonating cable, he gets shot in the back, and a large amount of bullets arrive a few seconds later, forcing everyone to take cover. Miller tries to help him and gets shot in the foot. By that time, his comrades have already identified where the bullets are coming from, and their job is to start climbing to kill the enemy before they mow them all down. John asks Ramirez to go with him while the rest stays behind, finishing the trap. It is too important that it is ready, and he will make sure to kill that man. While his comrades cover him, John starts climbing the hill and can see that it is two enemies entrenched behind a pile of sandbags, and they have an MG-42. Little by little, John and Ramirez start climbing, crawling along the ground and making sure that they cannot see them. When they are close enough, they both throw a grenade at the same time and wait for the moment when the enemies burst into pieces. The maneuver goes perfectly, but John asked Ramirez to make sure they were dead, and although the easy way would be to shoot each one, he decides to check them by hand, a mistake he pays for with his life a few seconds later, when we discover that one of the enemies was still alive and had a grenade hidden in his pocket. The explosion tears apart Ramirez's abdomen and leaves his guts exposed, but that is not the worst of it. The bad news is that the SS arrived much earlier than planned, and the trap is not ready yet, so John can do nothing to save his comrades, who are caught red-handed and massacred in an instant. Seeing this, John takes a sniper rifle and manages to make a precise shot, killing one of the enemies, but the rest escaped, and now he is in a compromising position. Before leaving, he makes sure to take the dog tags of all his comrades to honor them if he manages to survive the trip back. Besides that, he detonates the charges, managing to bring down several trees that block the road, which will buy him some time for when the rest of the SS appears on that road. The bad news is that a bullet grazed his leg, and that is slowing him down quite a bit, since he has an open wound he had not noticed. After walking through the forest for a while, he returns to the truck and says a prayer to try to start it. But while he tries, he can see the rest of the SS moving along the hill. So he crouches down and turns off the radio to try to keep the silence long enough for them to move on and ignore him. But that is the exact opposite of what happens, since the unit sends a soldier to check the truck, and John has no other choice but to fight him with his bare hands to kill him in silence. With the minutes of time he has managed to buy, John contacts the base and tells them that his unit has been massacred and he needs an immediate extraction. However, there are too many enemies between the base and him, so he will have to move to a meeting point if he wants to be rescued. John tries to tell him that that location is too far. He will not be able to make it with his wounded leg, but it is that or nothing, since the base is under artillery fire, and they are not sure they can repel this attack. The meeting point the base has given him is a little over 30 kilometers away, an extremely long walk for someone who is wounded, and, above all, taking the weather conditions into account. When night falls, John had advanced a couple of kilometers, but that was only the start of his journey, since he still had almost 27 kilometers to walk. But he had come across a cabin from which smoke was coming out, and he needed a place to rest. Since the cold was taking away his control of his limbs, the first thing he did was steal some clothes from the clothesline, hide in the barn, and eat some raw eggs to recover some strength. While the cold was gnawing at his bones, John could do nothing but wait to recover some warmth, managing to fall asleep. But the next morning he woke up with a shotgun in his face and the shouts of a furious farmer who was about to execute him. Luckily, this man supported his side, and when he found out he was American, he offered him his help, taking him to the house so his wife could treat the wound. After that, they gave him something to eat, and John took the chance to ask them where on the map he was, since he had no idea how far he had advanced, let alone how much he had left. The woman managed to identify her cabin on the map, and John tried to contact his comrades at the base, but he received no answer. The worst of all is that a unit of Germans was approaching the cabin, and the family had no other choice but to hide him in a compartment under the floor, hoping they would not find him. A German sergeant entered the cabin and placed a map on the table, demanding that the woman tell him where the Americans' fuel depot was, and she did her best to keep him distracted, while John waited with his weapon in hand and his finger on the trigger. When he realized the deception, the German pulled out his weapon and put it to his daughter's head, demanding that she reveal the information, but the mother knew nothing about what they wanted, and that is why she received a shot to the chest. Hearing the shot, John reacted, opened the hatch, and killed the Germans. But there were many more outside, and his daughter's crying could give them away. So he dragged her into the hole and left her hidden there, while he went out to face the soldiers. But they had already executed the father and were approaching the cabin. With only a few seconds available, John climbed onto one of the tanks, killed the driver, managing to steal the vehicle and escape along the road. However, less than a kilometer away, he came across a dog that refused to move, and, with the little visibility he had, he ended up throwing himself off a cliff. Now the huge machine of destruction was stuck, and he hit his head hard. All of this for refusing to run over a dog after he had no problem killing half a dozen Germans. To make everything worse, the hatch will not open, and our protagonist finds himself locked in a metal cage, waiting for them to arrive to mow him down. However, he is not willing to wait for death, so he starts hitting the hatch with a metal bar until it finally gives way, and from the bottom of the cliff he can see the dog at the top. With no other options, he has to climb back up and return to the cabin to see if the girl is okay and recover the radio. When he arrives, he realizes that the Germans burned the place, but fortunately the young woman is safe, just like the radio. Although he feels very bad for her, since her whole family has been massacred because of him, he cannot stay, so he gives her his weapon so she can use it in case the Germans return, and then he leaves. Further ahead, when he finally manages to reach a clearing, he can see the entire SS unit advancing. No fewer than 50 tanks, moving in sync, but that is no longer his problem. He still has 19 kilometers of inhospitable land full of enemies to cover. When he finally receives an answer from the base, things are much worse than before. There is no way they can rescue him, not until he reaches the meeting point, so he must keep moving forward and stay hidden for as long as he can. Unfortunately, as he advances along the road, he comes across a large number of dead bodies and signs that there was a recent conflict, but that is not the worst of it. An enemy vehicle approaches at high speed, and John has no other choice but to throw himself to the ground and pretend he is dead. One of the German soldiers approaches to steal his watch, and then, as a way of humiliating him, he urinates on him, but his life depends on him not reacting and staying still. So, despite the fury he may feel because of this humiliation, he must stay quiet. But unfortunately, a German soldier who was lying in front of him is still alive and starts to open his eyes. The soldiers steal his weapon and start walking toward the jeep, while the wounded man in front of John does everything he can to call them, but his voice does not come out, and our protagonist takes this chance to stab him and make sure he dies, and does not give him away. Wounded, furious, and humiliated, John has no other choice but to recover the radio and keep advancing, hoping that when he reaches the meeting point, his countrymen keep their promise and rescue him. As he advances, he comes across another cabin that seems to be abandoned, so he decides to go in to rest a little and get away from the relentless cold. But a few seconds later, a pot that was on the stove starts to boil, and he realizes he is not alone. On the table, there are several pieces of metal that at first do not seem to have any shape, but when he looks, on the other side of the room, he can see the fuel tanks of a German flamethrower, and now he knows perfectly well that he has invaded the shelter of an enemy soldier who arrived before him. The soldier comes out of the bathroom a few seconds later and tries to reach his weapon, but John takes the piece of metal on the table and hits him again and again until he kills him. When he tries to escape, he discovers that an enemy tank is on the other side of the cabin, and the man he just killed was not a simple soldier, but a high-ranking officer, and his unit is very close to there. Convinced that he has no way out, John decides to go back into the cabin and take the flamethrower to slowly climb up to the second floor and ambush the rest of the soldiers, who were shaving and enjoying the comforts that their ranks give them during the war. John waits for his moment patiently, and when the soldier is completely exposed, he fires the flamethrower directly at him, burning his whole body to the point where you cannot tell what is clothes and what is skin. As the soldier tries to get away, John catches up to him, takes his weapon, and executes him, and then kills the last one, who was inside the tank. At that moment, it starts to snow, and as he walks along the road, John comes across a horse as white as the snow and stops for a few seconds to pet it. By that point, he already has a little over 10 kilometers left, which means he has already covered much more than half of the journey. It is at this moment that he comes across the unit that was massacred at the start of the story, and the sergeant is still alive. The sergeant's name is Pierce, and although he has 2 bullets in his body, he is still able to give him some information, like the fact that the truck works and has a winch he can use to pull it out of the ditch. While John prepares the chain to pull the truck out of the ditch, he makes sure to keep talking with Pierce so that he does not give up. For a few minutes, John manages to have a conversation with the sergeant, until a barrage of artillery falls right on them, blowing the truck to 1,000 pieces and ruining any chance he had of using it. The worst of all is that this artillery is from his own allies, which means that John is in the middle of the swarm of enemy troops. If not, they would not have fallen so close. The explosion of the truck sent a splinter of metal toward his chest. The important thing now is to get away from there as soon as possible. But before leaving, he made sure to take Pierce's dog tag to honor him properly. Further ahead, when he is almost completely exhausted and only has 3 kilometers left to the meeting point, he manages to see the white horse again. Suddenly, another barrage of artillery appears, and everything around him starts to explode into 1,000 pieces. So he has no other choice but to start running and pray that the next explosion does not happen right under him. As soon as he has the chance to look up, John can see a large amount of bullets flying over him, which means he has entered a conflict area, and since he has no weapons, he can only stay there lying down until everything ends. But this only happens when night is already falling, and the only things that can be seen are some small fires resulting from the battle. Fortunately, he manages to meet another American, a soldier named Bellingham, who is accompanied by his dog and helps him get up. Bellingham says his Jeep was destroyed by a mortar, and apparently he is the only one alive. So he is very interested in being able to use his radio and asks John to turn it on and set the frequency that connects him with the base. A few minutes later, John manages to get in contact with the base, and they tell him that they have managed to secure the meeting point and could send him help, taking into account that they are so close. Before John can feel safe, something catches his attention, and he decides to check the cigarette that Bellingham just threw to the ground. He discovers that it is a German brand, which means that he is a traitor who is waiting for the right moment to kill him and keep his radio, which would be a very useful tool to spy on the enemy's communications. When he realizes this, John receives a call from the base where they tell him that they have no record of a soldier named Bellingham in that area, and he confirms his suspicions. So he pulls out his weapon and aims at Bellingham, telling him that he is a traitor to his nation and that he had heard of them, born in the United States, but sympathizers of the Germans, who kill their own brothers, and he asks him to roll up his sleeve to see if he has the SS tattoo. However, the kid does not give him that chance and starts running, taking advantage of the fact that John has lost a lot of blood from the shrapnel in his abdomen, and his aim is not that good. Once he is at a safe distance, he grabs a machine gun and unleashes a rain of bullets at John, managing to wound him in the leg. As if that were not bad luck enough, John only has 2 bullets left, and Bellingham's dog is about to bite him, so he must think very carefully about how to use them. With his next shot, he misses completely, but with the second one, he manages to hit him and kills him. With no bullets, seriously wounded, and having lost a lot of blood, John is not able to reach the radio in time when the base tries to contact him, and the last thing he can see before passing out is how the radio speaker stays only a few centimeters from his hand. Fortunately, the next time he manages to open his eyes, he is on board a truck, accompanied by allies who manage to arrive in time to save him and take him to the nearest hospital to treat his wounds. When John manages to regain consciousness, he is in the hospital trying to recover, when General Lauer comes to talk to him and tells him that they know what he did. He is a hero and managed to kill many Germans on his way out of that place. However, the war is not over, and the men he burned turned out to be very important, and the SS is furious. Besides that, the man he killed, the spy and traitor to his country, had the mission of assassinating General Lauer, so that is why he has come to thank him in person and recommend him to receive a Silver Star. But John does not believe he deserves it. All his men have died, and he failed to protect them. However, General Lauer tells him that men die in war, and that it is not his job to keep them alive. It is to keep alive those who are at home. They are the ones for whom they are making this sacrifice, so that the few who manage to get out of this hell can reunite with their loved ones. That is the true reason to survive the war. So he denies his refusal to receive the medal, and John asks to be able to keep Lassie, the radio that accompanied him throughout his whole odyssey, and the key to his getting out alive. A few seconds later, John looks outside and can see the girl he left hidden in the basement pass by, accompanied by a soldier, which means that she will be fine and will receive asylum in the United States, so she can have a better life than the one she could have in this place. Later that same day, John personally begins to write the condolence letters to his fallen comrades. That is why he was collecting all their dog tags, to be able to give them his condolences and tell them how brave they were. It was achieved thanks to their sacrifice. After writing the letters, John is having a coffee outside the hospital when he runs into Cash, who received the medical care he needed, and it turns out that they will both be sent home on the same flight. He thanks him for having made that decision for him, since he was stubborn about wanting to keep fighting, and he really wants to reunite with his family. It is at this moment that we return to Mrs. Caldwell's living room, who was Pierce's wife, the wounded man that John found next to the truck, and who died bravely trying to defend his unit from an ambush. She is quite impressed with the idea that there really are Americans willing to fight for the Germans, and his story seemed quite interesting to her, but he still has not told her the purpose of why he is here. It turns out that Mrs. Caldwell was not only the wife of a brave man who died in the war, she was the one responsible for assembling Lassie, the radio that allowed John to return home, since he has done a thorough investigation. And everything implies that he is right. That is why in his briefcase, he has a small gift for her, a check for $9,000, enough money to live in peace this life and the next, in gratitude for her great work in building perhaps the most resistant radio of the whole war and hearing the story of what was possible thanks to her. A small favor he managed to get, thanks to receiving the Silver Star, and he could not think of another person who deserved this gift, especially after finding out that, after all her hard work, the assembly company refused to pay her pension, and she was going through an extremely difficult time. The movie comes to an end, with John leaving Mrs. Caldwell's house and walking along the snowy street of New York until he reaches his home, where his beloved wife and his children are waiting for him, to whom he tells a story before sleeping. And then he looks toward the corner, where he has Lassie, the radio that got him out of one of the most dangerous and inhospitable places on Earth, in the middle of one of the bloodiest wars that have ever occurred. So remember to leave your like and your comment, and if you want to see your favorite movie on the channel, do not hesitate to recommend it to us.